Good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Ray Andrewson. I'm the Executive Director of the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce, serving the communities of Wallingford and North Haven. Welcome to our North Haven Candidates Forum for this election year 2021, presented by the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce and our Government Affairs Committee. I want to welcome you, as in the next hour, we'll be presenting questions to both the candidates for first selectman for the town of North Haven. And these questions that we'll be asking will also be available to you in the coming days and weeks, as North Haven Television will be taking this recording and rebroadcasting it on their service for you to see once again. Before we introduce our two candidates for first selectman this morning and begin our program, just a couple of ground rules to share with you this morning. This is a 60-minute candidates forum. So we will be using all of the time to fill with our question and answer period. There will also, and has been, a coin flip to determine who will be starting our program here today. And I'll explain in just a moment who will be going first in the order that we present. Each of the candidates will have 2 minutes for opening and closing statements of this morning. They will also have 2 minutes for wrap-up statements and closing statements at the end of this forum. Candidate A, who wins the flip, will have 2 minutes at election to answer the question. Candidate B will then have 2 minutes to answer the same question, and then 30-second follow-up responses from both candidate A and candidate B will be offered. And candidates have the option to use this time using the additional time or deferring the question. And after the first question is asked, the order of the candidate answering the question will be reversed. Quinnipiac Chamber representative will be holding up time cards following the intervals at 1 minute. You'll see that on the screen. Also at 30 seconds and 10 seconds to notify our candidates who are on this Zoom presentation and recording when their time will be up. And after each candidate completes the closing statements, we will then thank you all for coming here, and that will be it. So I'd like, before we get into the meat of the questions and begin this morning with our opening statements, I'd like to introduce the two candidates first. The incumbent for selectman, Republican from the town of North Haven, Michael Frieda. Mike Frieda is serving a 6th term as the chief elected official in the town of North Haven. He has been prior to that, a past member of the North Haven Board of Finance, 3rd selectman as well for 2 years. And before that, a extensive career in business, president and CEO of some of multi-million-dollar corporations. He's a past president of the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, also is chair of the executive board of the South Central Regional Council of Government, vice chair of the Workforce Alliance Executive Board, and sits on the board of directors of the Connecticut Council of Small Towns. Democratic challenger Karl Kordeck is from 2 business areas in his experience, both tourism and security. He's been a manager in tourism in his career, director in security. He is a graduate of Dizzy University, has 2 degrees from Charter Oak State College, and has blended them for his campaign to become first selectman in North Haven as a challenger. So we do have opening statements, and by virtue of our coin toss earlier, first selectman Mike Frieda will begin with his 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Ray. It's a great pleasure to be here with the Chamber of Commerce, and a great pleasure to be here to talk about some of the issues here in North Haven. So it's been my great pleasure for the past 12 years to be serving the great citizens of North Haven. We've accomplished a lot together. I will start by saying that Ray summarized some of my business experience, and that has helped me tremendously. The job of a first selectman in any community, particularly here in North Haven, is a very complex position. It's complicated and requires a great deal of expertise in many different areas: operational management, strategic management, financial management, customer service management, and bringing in new businesses. Over the course of the past 12 years, we have had many successes together. And those successes include balancing budgets every year, having 6 out of the last 10 years with no tax increases, and 2 of the last 6 years with mill rate reductions. We have had unprecedented success in grand list growth. 2 years ago, we led the state with grand list growth over 9%. And that's a result of my initiatives directly involved with every economic development project in town. We've brought in hundreds of new businesses here. We've created thousands and thousands of new jobs. Amazon as an example. 3 years ago, Amazon came in. They are now have created 5,500 jobs here in North Haven and are the largest taxpayer here in town. As we move forward, we're still faced with challenges. These are very difficult times, but I'm very confident in my ability as North Haven's chief elected official to manage through complexity, to continue to bring new businesses in, and continue to reinvest back in our great community. And we'll get into that a little bit later in terms of some of the things we've done from infrastructure improvements. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karl Kordeck. I'm running for first selectman. It's great to be here. I would like to thank the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce for holding this event and allowing us to speak freely about what North Haven needs today, tomorrow, and into the future. Our town is rich with such a great community of residents and local businesses, additionally, large-scale industries. North Haven has so much growth potential within its grasp. I'm running for first selectman. I'm here to tell you today, all those watching or listening, that we can be still having more done in this town. We have survived this turbulent economic time of COVID with the strength anyone would be proud of. Now is the time to rebuild something bigger and better than what was here before. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will tell you, it's much better when you don't mute yourself when you're trying to introduce someone. So I'll recall doing that for the next hour. So let's get to our first question with our two candidates here on this forum. And this goes to First Selectman Mike Frieda. The first question for 2-minute response and regarding economic development. When you give the importance of economic development and growth in the region, and as we've seen in the region, how would you compare and assess North Haven's success in this area, ensure the town is on track compared to the rest of the region? 2 minutes.
That's a great question, Ray. We have had a great deal of success here, and I know other communities have had some success also. We do it a little bit differently here. The chief elected official, myself, is directly involved with every project, and that is something that I don't delegate. Our grand list growth down through the years has been higher than many municipalities in the area. We focus in on bringing in large businesses, small businesses, and mid-sized businesses. We look at areas in the town, Washington Avenue, State Street, Universal Drive, as key components to our economic development strategy. I've been very fortunate that in the last several years, I've been selected to be the top chief elected official in the state of Connecticut in terms of economic growth, economic development, not only in North Haven, but creating new businesses here that have benefited the region. What we see in North Haven, when we create a new business, we bring in people from other communities. We have businesses here that we have many people from outside of North Haven coming into North Haven to work. And that is why I've been recognized as a regional leader in economic development. Thank you.
Mr. Kordeck, you have 2 minutes.
The main economic policy I'm focused on is moving North Haven into the next decade with the preservation of our current town services offered to residents, emphasizing the need to keep all of our departments fully funded and staffed. To achieve this, we will be opening up a new area unexplored in North Haven, that is tourism. There is a value in our town's geographic location, as Mr. Frieda pointed out. We are perfectly nestled between I-91 and the Merritt Parkway. From these new tourist-based businesses coming in, we could revitalize declining regions of North Haven and grow into a unique destination with businesses for everyone to visit and thrive in all year round. I agree with Mr. Frieda. We need more outside visitors coming in to generate business for our local town. And in addition, I hope to expand the grand list with these moving forward. Thank you.
So Mike Frieda, you have 30 seconds if you'd like follow-up.
Yes, I see no areas in North Haven where we're falling behind. We're growing and thriving in many, many areas and bringing in new businesses in all the areas that I mentioned. Mr. Kordeck mentioned about preservation of services. Well, I'm not preserving services. I'm adding to services. I've added to services level here year after year after year and increased the service level by reducing taxes, controlling the mill rate, and bringing in new businesses in various sectors. Thank you.
Great. And if you choose, you have 30 seconds to Mr. Kordeck.
As a resident of North Haven, all I can say is this. Universal Drive is beautiful. State Street is getting there. The only blight we have right now is north side of Washington Ave. We have businesses that have been there for almost a decade unoccupied. I think with Quinnipiac nearby, we can definitely generate some additional businesses by filling those land spots and actually bring in new businesses that can generate some revenue to the grant list. I agree we've done well. From a budgetary perspective, we've done really well, but we can do a lot more. Thank you.
So now this question will go to Karl Kordeck. It will have 2 minutes, and it relates to COVID-19, certainly on the minds of everybody in the last year and a half in any business community, in any community, and how they've been affected, not just in terms of health, but in terms of how the business community has been impacted by the pandemic. So they face challenges, and we've heard this at the Chamber of Commerce so frequently. Restaurants, small retail, for example. And now we're moving forward, and we have been this year with reopening and some ribbon cuttings for new businesses as well. How will you work to support those businesses and help them rebuild after a period of COVID? And this question goes to you, Mr. Kordeck.
Well, first and foremost, from my tourism experience, I would definitely say to people coming in, I would say it's safe, it's secure, and it's local. Those are the 3 words I would associate with North Haven, because a lot of people, like you said, have a hesitancy to either shop in person. Most people shop online, and we need to get them back into the local businesses and being that partner with the local level. I understand Mr. Frieda is really good at that, but hopefully I can step up and take up that mantle and carry that torch to the next conclusion of bringing in additional businesses and helping them thrive beyond COVID and let them know this is not the end. This is just the beginning. Thank you.
As first selectman, and you've been first selectman now for some time, if you look at what happened with this pandemic, it was a new challenge as well. What's your response?
Well, this pandemic created a different paradigm for us in local and municipal government on a variety of different levels. As it relates to businesses, we worked very closely with many, many businesses here in North Haven. But I took it down to a deeper level. I worked with property landlord owners who were leasing businesses or leasing space to various businesses. And we encouraged them to look to help reduce the rent, to work with their tenants to make sure that businesses were at least having a chance here to survive during the pandemic. And I'm proud to say that many of these property owners worked very closely with their tenants, with us encouraging them to do so, to ensure that if the rent couldn't be paid for 1 month, that there were accommodations made. We worked closely with businesses in terms of not issuing mandates, which businesses appreciated, and businesses all over the town called me for advice, encouragement, and that's what we did. We spent a lot of time working with our businesses to help them navigate through these difficult times. We also took it 2 or 3 steps further. In my role as vice chairman of Workforce Alliance, we were identifying sectors that were struggling, hospitality, restaurants as an example. We were looking to help replace positions by encouraging people who were out of work to take positions. We drilled down to a level that was unprecedented because of the difficult times we were in. And we continue to do that even as we ease out of this pandemic. There are still challenges for businesses, but even my collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce, I think, has helped many businesses here in North Haven. Thank you.
Mr. Kordeck, you have 30 seconds, and this is on COVID-19 relief.
The only question I would have is, did the no mask mandate impact senior shopping patterns in local businesses? I think it impacted them a little bit at the beginning of COVID. Thank you.
Okay. 30 seconds for Mike Frieda.
I don't see it that way. I think that what happened was that, yes, there's always a disparity between opinions in terms of mask mandates at businesses or not having them. But my relationship with the businesses down through the years has given me a trust factor with the businesses, that they know their customers and clients very, very well. Many businesses have chosen to have masks, some haven't. I trust the businesses in their judgment.
Thank you. Next question, this goes to First Selectman Mike Frieda, and we'll have 2 minutes to respond. And it's on the issue of transparency in government and keeping local businesses informed in decision-making processes, whether it goes related to planning and zoning issues, whether it goes to construction plans, working with developers, out-of-town businesses or local businesses establishing a footprint in the community. How do you plan to keep businesses involved in the decision-making process? You have 2 minutes.
Well, I spent a lot of time meeting with businesses and talking to businesses. Twice a year prior to the pandemic, or at least once a year, we were doing our State of the Union address for businesses, where from a transparency standpoint, I would deliver PowerPoint presentations. I would take the business community through visual tours of the town, property by property and location by location in terms of what we're doing. Many times, and I still continue to do this, I will drive prospective businesses all around town. Love Lyra Bakery is a good example of a small business. Carol Asprelli, a wonderful woman. She was looking at various communities in town. I think from what I was told, I was the only mayor or first selectman that took the time not only to call her, but to personally drive her around town and show her 17 different locations. And now she's thriving there across the street from Big Y. Whether it's big businesses, small businesses, or large businesses, I am with them. I spend time with them. I help them. Additionally, yesterday was a good example. I had a commercial real estate developer call me from Massachusetts, said, Mr. Frieda, we're hearing all about you in North Haven on economic development, and we'd like to come and meet with you. I offered to drive them around town because they want to bring a retail mall plaza here in town. So my transparency with businesses is a daily thing, and it involves speaking with them, talking with them, offering them advice, and driving them around town to show them different locations. Thank you.
And the issue is transparency. How do you plan to keep businesses involved in the decision-making process? Karl Kordeck, you have 2 minutes.
I think there's a lot of little things that can be improved. Obviously, the government's done a great job with economic development over the past decade. The first one I would suggest is probably fixing the EDC website, making it more updated for 21st century. Because if you go to the EDC website, it looks like it's from the 1990s, Windows 95 style. Beyond that, I would fix the social media presence. Personal touches are good, but at the end of the day, like you're saying, there's global businesses that want to come here. There's companies outside of the state that want to see what we have to offer, and they can't see it through social media. And that's one of the greatest tools we have today in the 21st century. Secondary to that, I would think we should improve at least a little bit the transparency amount that's going on with the EDC minutes, the meeting minutes. Sometimes the meetings minutes are very brief and short. I think we need a little bit more description of what's going on in town, as opposed to everything is good or everything's great or this project's been delayed or that project's been delayed. I think the residents would appreciate having more information available to them, especially in the information age. Thank you.
And Mike Frieda, 30 seconds, follow up.
Well, with respect to the EDC, we have an Economic Development Commission, but as everyone knows on that Economic Development Commission, and I say this with all due respect because they would agree, that Mike Frieda is the Economic Development Commission. So at those meetings, I will give lengthy overviews in terms of what's happening, but I also utilize the print and media to tell the public what we're doing. My columns in the back of North Haven magazine are clearly illustrating exactly what's happening in town. I have public meetings. I talk about it at Board of Selectmen meetings. I think we've been very transparent. Thank you.
And if you choose, 30 seconds.
I would just say that print media is good, but at the end of the day, we need multiple communication channels open for residents. Thank you.
Okay. Next question goes to Karl Kordeck, and it's on the issue of regulatory reform and how to make the process of starting or establishing a business perhaps easier in town. So there are admittedly hurdles to overcome for any business. There's a permitting process, licensing, depending upon the particular business. How would you use your position, Karl Kordeck, as first selectman, if elected, to make the process easier for new business in North Haven?
Well, it goes back to what I previously stated. I believe that the EDC website should have remote links available to businesses that want to get the permitting process started early. I think a lot of businesses and developers would agree that you have to get started right away if they want to make some revenue and get the year started. So I think from that perspective, you should be able to expedite the process. Additionally, I would work with the departments in town to see what else we could do to expedite that process, especially with the Planning and Zoning Commission. I know we've had some projects that have been either delayed or hindrance because of the R40 lot issue and the affordable housing issue. As that extends obviously into the next decade, we're going to be seeing more of those conflicts arise where residents don't necessarily want businesses abutting their houses, and I understand that completely. So thank you.
Mike Frida, you have 2 minutes.
So let me explain what we do with businesses in terms of simplifying the regulatory processes and sometimes simplifying in government the bureaucratic processes. It has nothing to do with the EDC website. It has everything to do, and I'll use Amazon as an example. When we brought Amazon here to North Haven, and they sat in my conference room, and there were 8 executives from Amazon from all over the United States in that meeting. The first question they asked me was, Mr. Frida, what's your background? When I told them I had the business background I had, they were very impressed with that. The second question they asked me was the stability of the municipality in terms of your financial management. They don't like wide vicissitudes and mill rate reductions. But what I did for them, and what I do with many businesses, is I give them what we call one-stop meeting shopping. I simplify the process by having them in with the building department, the land use director, the police chief, the fire chief. So when they leave that meeting, we have a plan in terms of how they're going to move forward. We do this with many businesses. It has nothing to do with an EDC website. We've already increased the technology in our building department with our, what was once our view permit system. Now we've enhanced that. Many permits are done online and businesses appreciate that. It's a matter of the chief elected official, not the EDC website, the chief elected official taking control of a meeting, assembling the group of resources that the town offers, and having that prospective business leave my office saying, wow, we got everything done in a meeting with Mike Frida. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 30 seconds, Karl Kordeck.
No, I'm good.
Okay. First Selectman Frida, 30 seconds, follow up. You're entitled to it.
Well, I can go on for 3 hours in terms of what we do in terms of businesses, but I'll take another 15 seconds by saying that we try to create positive outcomes here. And my involvement directly as the chief elected official, because of my business experience, allows me to facilitate things more quickly than those that may not have any business experience in my position. Thank you.
This next question will go to you, Mike Frida, and it's on the topic of jobs and the labor force, workforce development in the town, North Haven, and the region in particular, to recruit workers from the region to North Haven businesses. We've heard this at the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce, Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, regional chambers about the labor shortage and difficulty from manufacturing companies, retail, restaurants to get quality workers to be able to fill those positions. One of the biggest challenges they're facing right now. So as first selectman, how do you aid businesses responding to this challenge and create a stable, solid workforce to assist local business? 2 minutes.
Well, there's several things that I've tried to do. And one goes back to my position at Workforce Alliance, working with that board. We have a lot of training. We have a lot of things that we can help prospective job applicant people to do. And what we've done is identify sectors. We have tried to facilitate an environment where people go into Workforce Alliance buildings through Zoom type of social media type calls, and we try to connect them with businesses. You know, I've been part of the chamber job fairs for quite some time. I've actually walked people through and introduced them at the chamber events to introduce them to the businesses that I know. And over the past 3 years, I think I helped at least three young men get positions by personally introducing them. What I don't understand, though, is the fact that we now are on a slight rebound. The Department of Labor has said that in August, there were thousands of jobs created, in September also. We're now about 69% at a state level in terms of jobs being refilled, jobs being recreated. So we still have a long way to go. My role as first selectman will continue to be working with businesses, continue to identify those in need of jobs, place them through services at Workforce Alliance, and determine the job sectors that they would like to go and where jobs are needed. Thank you.
And 2 minutes for Karl Kordeck.
I think the main issue, especially at my age, because I'm 31, has been the constant necessity at times to displace this solely on the business when it's also the town. You need to have accessible commuter access. You need to have workforce housing available. You also need to be able to make your town kind of a destination for everybody to want to live, work, and play. And I think North Haven's done a good job so far, but you need to be able to draw them in to the local businesses. And the only way to do that would be to make North Haven someplace they see themselves growing. Because people can take all the jobs they want. They can commute 45 minutes each way every day. But at the end of the day, you're not retaining them as residents. You're just making commuters. And I think North Haven has a better job to do with bringing in local businesses and providing them with the workforces that assist them as well as grow with them. Thank you.
30 seconds for Mr. Frieda.
Well, I think some of what Mr. Kordeck said is true, but North Haven has been very open under my administration in terms of trying to facilitate people getting jobs. And the bottom line is this: if you're 31 years old or you're 41 years old and you don't have a job, there are thousands of jobs available. So in the end, it's up to the individual to pursue a career, to go online, to go on the social media sites. The town can aid in that, but it is the person that has to have the initiative. Thank you.
30 seconds, Mr. Kordeck.
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, next question goes to Karl Kordeck, related to building business, and it's a Connecticut question, not just a North Haven question. We see it often here at the chamber and hear it from our chamber partners and members very frequently about Connecticut's national reputation for attracting business and attracting jobs to this particular region. And the rankings for the state are not particularly high if you look at some of them from various business entities that rate these things. What would you do to incentivize business and how it relates specifically to North Haven, but also to cooperate regionally here in Connecticut to bring jobs, to bring business right here to this region? Karl Kordeck, you get the question for 2 minutes.
I think the state has tried desperately to bring in as many businesses as they can and retain them. I think on the state level, you need to be able to build those relationships. And I know North Haven has those relationships with the state level of officials. I think also we need to accentuate our access, which we've done pretty well, to I-91 and the Merritt Parkway when it comes to commuters and also businesses coming in. Regionally, we're doing good compared to other municipalities. I think we need to continue to focus on expansion, but not so much incremental expansion, but larger expansion to draw people in. So you need, like, you know, Amazon's great, but what would be better than Amazon? That's what we have to think of. And I think once we set our goals on something bigger and better, we can draw in bigger and better businesses. Thank you.
2 minutes for Mr. Frieda.
So several things come into play with regards to that question. Number one, as chairman of the Council of Governments here, and as last year's president of Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, if we have a business that is looking for a building that is something that North Haven doesn't have, let's say it's 50,000 square feet. Well, we work collaboratively in the region. I will call some of my chief elected officials, because although North Haven in that case, in that example, may not be able to host that business, we want to make sure that that business stays in the region. So I work collaboratively with the chief elected officials from around the area and even at the state level to ensure that we don't lose anything just because it can't come to North Haven. You know, I'm at the point here after 12 years where I can pick up the phone. I have relationships at the state level, at the federal level, and of course at the local level with all of the municipal CEOs. We are working on now, and I just announced it, a new 80,000 square foot retailer at Universal Drive called At Home. There's 225 of these stores across the country and only one in Connecticut. That will go into the old Toys R Us, Babies R Us building. That'll create 300 jobs right there from around the region. So that was a good example of, in the retail sector, how we're bringing in new businesses to create jobs. Now, I will say this in my remaining seconds. We had a national trucking company that wanted to come into North Haven, but one of the state regulatory agencies gave the company a hard time. So I talked to the governor, I talked to David Lehman. You can't afford to lose businesses like that in the state through bureaucratic tendencies at a state level. And the state responded very well to me on that one. So thank you.
You have 30 seconds to follow up, Mr. Kordeck.
I would just simply say the north side of and the south side of Universal Drive definitely need reinvestment. I applaud the at-home investment for them to move into the old Toys R Us. Obviously, it's been empty since 2018, so it's good to get that progress there. I think we need more investments to bring in, obviously outside businesses, and I agree the regional aspect of it definitely needs to be looked on more. Thank you.
Mike Friede, you have 30 seconds.
So I'd like to address Mr. Kordeck on this issue. And Mr. Kordeck, I realize, doesn't have the experience in terms of municipal government. But when we look at Northern Washington Avenue, there are 4 buildings that are being land banked by property owners. They don't want to do anything with those. So the town cannot make an investment, quote unquote, in those buildings. The town cannot use taxpayers' money to invest in developing those buildings. But I can tell you this, I've been relentless with those property owners to move things forward, because we can't have 3 major buildings, and there's a 4th plaza there, that a property owner who bought 3 years ago just wants to sit on it and land bank it. There's no town investment that can change that. Only the sheer force of yours truly, my will to get them and convince them to do so. So thank you.
Thank you. This question now goes to you, Mike Friede. And it's on the issue of open space and developing open space land. If you can walk us through the open space process, there's a difference between undeveloped land and open space committed land, of course. Universal Drive is a popular venue in North Haven. I think we'd all agree, in Monowese, an essential part of attracting jobs, business to the state, and also specifically here to North Haven, a busy retail area. If you look at the remaining open space land, developable land in the town of North Haven, what would be your plan for the coming years to develop that land? You have 2 minutes to respond.
So when I look at open space, I look at it from 2 different levels. We have spent almost $2 million in purchasing open space, probably more now. About 5 years ago, I re-energized and recommissioned the Open Space Committee, which was dormant for years. We established a chairman, and we have an open space committee, an active committee. I empowered them to look and come back to me with recommendations on open space. We bought open space between Kings Highway and Hartford Turnpike. We bought open space between Spring Road and Middletown Avenue. We have secured open space to prevent intrusive development in the residential areas. Now, the open space from a business standpoint, in terms of developable properties, a good example is 1000 Universal Drive. That right now is open space, but we found someone to buy it. The transaction is now completed, and 1000 Universal Drive, which is next to the Nissan Jeep dealership, that will be future development for the town of North Haven. So to summarize, I view open space as 2 things. Open space in the residential areas, of which we have a plan. We have executed the plan, and we bought several properties to ensure that they're open space and recreational areas. Open space regarding business are open spaces that are developable. They may be on State Street, Universal Drive, as I mentioned, and on Washington Avenue. And it's my job to fill those open spaces from a business standpoint, but to preserve open space in the residential areas by continuing to look to purchase properties that allow that open space and prevent intrusive development. Thank you.
And Ms. Kordeck, you have 2 minutes on the topic of open space.
I'm happy to hear that open spaces are being preserved in residential areas. I also am ecstatic that as long as we have access in the commuter areas, the heavy traffic areas, and we have open space, we can benefit from that from a business perspective. I agree with that very much. Second to that, I think we should always preserve the open spaces as much as possible, obviously, because the land value alone if a developer comes in and, we have property of value to them, we can make a profit, a pretty good profit at that. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Open space is good in residential areas, business areas, definitely good to benefit from developing. Thank you.
Mike Freedy, 30 seconds to follow up.
Right now, I'm continuing to look at what parcels are available in residential areas for open space. And the open space, a byproduct of that, you have to have a willing seller. And what we do on open spaces, we're obligated to do 2 blue book appraisals. We come out with a value and we present the offer to the person considering selling. And that will continue to be an important strategy in this administration, open space in the residential areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Next 30 seconds, Mr. Kordeck. If you choose to add anything.
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay, thanks. On to the next question, and it relates to transportation, and this is addressed to you, Mr. Kordeck, related to all facets of transportation: highway, automobile, bus lines, commuter lots, trains, you name it. And of course, the expansion of Tweed, which is a regional airport as well, and that seems imminent nearby. So banking on all those areas, how would you assess North Haven's transportation needs at this moment in time as part of an economic development plan? And how would you work to improve that related to specifically bus lines and also train and train stations? People could use those venues for commuting. You have 2 minutes.
That's a great question. As somebody that's worked with monorails, trains, and boats and all kinds of different transportation devices in my tourism industry experience, I think North Haven has a great position to attack and be on an offensive stance when it comes to bringing in, competitive businesses that also want to benefit from the commuter access. I think from a bus line perspective, as you mentioned, some of our bus stations, especially the one outside of Town Hall, needs a little cleanup, a little spruce up. Obviously, it's not necessarily the town's problem, but it's also the bus line's problem that they focus on, cleaning it up, tidying it up, because the small things do matter from a personal perspective. Beyond that, I think the train station access has always been a debate question for the past couple of years. Obviously, with the state funding and other benefits coming in, we have to make sure that we have the money basically to put one in. And I think we're getting close to that little by little. And I think that would benefit us greatly, especially in the region, because you have New Haven and you have Hartford. And if we position ourselves geographically between those two, we could be a powerhouse when it comes to commuter access as well as local small businesses. Thank you.
First Selectman Freedy, you have 2 minutes.
So let me explain what we have done and what we are doing on transportation. We now are back with a train station on board for the town of North Haven. So the state and I worked very closely together down through the years, and the state invested about $6 million in the design of a train station. First, it was going to go on Divine Street. Then it was moved. We moved it down to Stiles at the end of J. Roos. During that process, because Pfizer owns the property at the end of Stiles, I was very instrumental in collaborating, bringing Pfizer in, introducing them to the DOT, hosting a meeting in my office, and they made a deal that Pfizer would lease some of the land to the DOT to build that train station. Now we're waiting to see how it can be funded through the State Transportation Fund. Now, one of the things I've done down through the years, and this is where relationships and experience come into play, that I also was appointed to be co-chairman of the Connecticut State Rail Advisory Committee. As a result of that appointment 6 years ago, I established great relationships with the DOT. John Burnick's a good example, who heads up the train stations. And we can make an argument that if it wasn't for my involvement at that state level as co-chairman of that commission, North Haven would not be considered for a train station right now. We need to work a little bit more closely with Connecticut Transit District. I'm on the board of directors of that. They have routes that get truncated in certain parts. I'll give you an example. Universal Drive traveling west on Sackett Point Road. We've tried hard to get them to connect that route. I would agree that we need some bus depot improvements. They don't want to invest the money. I'm trying to figure this out, how we can get that done. And that's one of my major initiatives in this next term. Thank you.
Karl Kordeck, you have 30 seconds for a follow-up.
I just have one question. How many businesses would benefit from moving it from the train station from the previous location to the new location? Thank you.
30 seconds for Mike Freda.
Well, Karl, I'm sure is not aware of this. I wouldn't expect him to be aware of it. But the Divine Street location, because Humphrey Chemical was at the end of that, the remediation needed to be done there. It would cost more to remediate that site than it would to build the train station. And that's one of the reasons why we moved it one block down on Stiles. So the way I see it, that whether it's Divine Street or Stiles, it would have no impact on the businesses at all, because businesses that would benefit in either location. Thank you.
So his next question is for you, First Selectman Frida, and it revolves around technology. And here's a fun fact that our chamber dug up for this presentation. As of last year, 46.4% of North Haven population uses the internet at broadband speeds. And of course, we always are trying to upgrade technology everywhere in our households, but certainly within our businesses too. So as we recover from the pandemic, and there's been a lot more online application, including this Zoom presentation here, how would you improve the technology infrastructure as part of North Haven's development? 2 minutes.
So let me share with you what we've done and what we're planning to do. From an internal governmental standpoint, we have invested tremendously in increasing the technology here. Some examples of that are live meetings now in this conference room next door, where our Board of Selectmen meetings are live and we're streaming live on Facebook. That entailed a tremendous investment in technology in an old building here that was built in 1886 so that we can facilitate that with the public next door here. We've also invested $4 million in a technological upgrade for our internal radio communication systems between police and fire. For the first time ever, we now have connected our Board of Education with that system, that God forbid, in the event of a breach in our school system, our police would be able to respond 3 to 4 minutes more quickly as a result of that investment I've made. Thirdly, we've built an emergency management center with all kinds of technology across the street. If we were all together in a storm, a major storm, I'd be able to show you on screens, street by street, where there's power lines down, where there's trees down. And that's another investment that I've made. We'll continue to invest in technology. In terms of broadband, we're already working with Comcast. I have a lot of contacts at Comcast at the higher levels. Through the federal stimulus money, ARPA, it's my goal to utilize some of that money to increase the bandwidth of Comcast throughout our community. I'm also working with GoNetSpeed Quick. They are also building fiber optics in Ridge Road because of my relationships with them to increase broadband capacity there. I can go on and on about this. I know my time is up. Thank you very much.
Challenger Karl Kordeck, this is on the issue of technology. You have 2 minutes.
I think broadband's good. I'm happy to hear that GoNetSpeed is being involved in the development of more infrastructure. For a while, some of the residents were complaining that they didn't have access to higher speed. So it's good to be hearing that we're getting those investments. Additionally, I would look into Wi-Fi mesh networks, if possible, on the town green and some other areas throughout the town that necessarily don't necessitate running a physical broadband wire or router. Beyond that, I think we're doing good as a town for broadband and infrastructure investment. I agree wholeheartedly. The police should always have the access, and the school should always have the access to infrastructure that helps them and involves them beyond just technology, as well as, broadband and everything else that's going on. I'm glad to also hear that the radio issues in the high school have been fixed with the response times. Other than that, I have no complaints. I know some residents had some complaints about Comcast, but obviously that's a one-on-one case with the resident themselves and the service provider. Thank you.
You have 30 seconds, Mike Frida. So follow up.
I just wanted to add one thing in terms of what we've done. We've made a significant investment, and many of North Haven's residents, I'm sure, received messages from me during storms, tornadoes, and hurricanes. We have upgraded that technology. We have a broader reach of residential impact in terms of getting my messages. And what I always try to do is keep the residents informed during those difficult storms, blizzards, tornadoes, and hurricanes. So thank you.
And 30 seconds, Karl Kordeck, to follow up too.
I have no follow-up.
Okay, great. We are moving on to the next question, and it is to you, Challenger Karl Kordeck. about consumers, getting customers to come to North Haven to patronize North Haven businesses, attracting not only those new businesses to the area, but getting people to drive here, to come here from out of area towns, as well as those residents within the town of North Haven. So, Mr. Kordeck, how do you plan to use your position if you are elected for selectman, to market and attract North Haven to people outside of the town? You have 2 minutes.
I think from an attraction standpoint, I think Universal Drive is definitely the crown jewel of North Haven right now. As I mentioned previously before, I think the north side of Washington Ave could definitely benefit from some investment. Obviously, there's a lot of steps and process to that, but we have the capability to have the north side as well as the south side of North Haven attracting visitors. Universal Drive is one of those good locations because, as the first selectman will tell you, having Torritos there now, the Mexican restaurant, will definitely drive some interest in the south end of Universal Drive, not so much Target or anything else. It would be that first fresh restaurant that people always want. I think you have to definitely bring unique destinations to town, unique restaurants, unique shopping. From my tourism aspect, from my own personal experience, I think we definitely need to spruce up our image when it comes to certain aspects of attracting, visitors, not necessarily from out of the region or from out of the town, but also from out of the state. I think we have a great possibility here regionally with our, as I mentioned before, the Merritt Parkway and I-91 to bring in new investment and new visitors to our town. Thank you.
And 2 minutes for Mr. Frieda.
So Mr. Kordeck mentioned Torritos, and that's a good example. And I want to share with you what I've done in terms of being North Haven's chief elected cheerleader when it comes to promoting new businesses. So Torritos was a project that I was directly involved with the CEO of National Realty, Jack Baker. We wanted to bring a Mexican restaurant in. We delivered a Mexican restaurant. But in anticipation of it, through the utilization of social media, I was getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of messages with great anticipation when it was coming in. I was promoting it on social media. Once it opened and I went down to Torritos, they were hugging me. They were so happy because they were following along North Haven's chief elected official promoting that business. Last Friday, they had a 2-hour wait to get in there. The owner thanked me personally for promoting his business through social media. And many of his customers said, Mr. Frieda let us know and was keeping us posted about this. Now, I've done the same thing with other businesses in town in promoting them through my social media contacts and through the social media platform. Amazon recently said to me that they thought that I was one of the few chief elected officials that supported them overtly with the public. And the job creation there, I think, speaks for itself. So I look at part of my role as not only the chief elected official, strategically, operationally, financial management wise, overseeing the legal aspect of this government, but also being a cheerleader, promoting the town in a positive fashion. And I'll continue to do so. Thank you.
30 seconds, Karl Kordeck, to follow up.
I would definitely agree with that. Torritos is definitely worth the wait. Thank you.
Mike Frieda, anything to add?
Well, we're working on many new businesses in town. I have a hotel being built there, and I'm a big cheerleader for that. I recently announced a new Panera Bread standalone restaurant is going next to the Chick-fil-A. And Peter Ferrara at Ferrara's is a good example. He's thanked me many times for promoting and being a cheerleader for Ferrara's Market, which has been an unprecedented success down in Universal Drive. So thank you.
Thank you. I had lunch at Torritos yesterday. Spinach quesadilla, if you both want to know. Thank you. This next question is about manufacturing, of which we have much in North Haven. About 2,000 people plus are employed just within the town of North Haven in the manufacturing industry, one of the largest aspects of the North Haven economy. But they have their specific issues, obviously, with the pandemic, supply chain issues being a major problem right now, and also the inability to fill some of their open positions in manufacturing. As your position as first selectman, Mike Frieda, how do you mitigate stress and how do you cooperate from your office to work with the manufacturing entities in the town of North Haven? You have 2 minutes.
So two things I'll mention. Number one, we've worked closely with Jameson Scott, who's the president of the New Haven Manufacturers Association. We've introduced him. We connected him with our school system because we think there's an opportunity to have our high school students understand and realize that there's other trades out there that could be beneficial to them. So we've tried to work that way in terms of connecting the Manufacturers Association with the school system. I've been with the New Haven Manufacturers Association down at Medtronics, speaking with Medtronics, one of our top 4 Grand List members. But also I try to take it a step further. We take a look at North Haven and let's look at Praxair Industries as an example. I have a very good relationship with them. They're one of our top 10 Grand List members. So we work closely with them to bring in a division of their company, the Lindy gasification system. That came in from another part of Connecticut, and that we look to consolidate those 2 divisions here in North Haven, and they are now on Washington Avenue. So it's a twofold strategy, creating a more heightened level of awareness with our high school students and in many cases our college students in terms of the manufacturing jobs that are there and how good those jobs can be. But it's also working with our manufacturers here to see how we can expand with them. And I'm working on a major project now at Defco Park with Chris Ulbrich that may end up seeing North Haven receive another business in town that's an expansion of an existing manufacturing facility in this region. Thank you.
Mr. Kordeck, you have 2 minutes.
The first thing I would do is probably most importantly make North Haven competitive for these businesses to not only attract residents and also younger students that obviously Mr. Frieda mentioned, the high school students with, apprentice programs and different fellowship programs that they have. To remain competitive in North Haven, I think we do need investment, like Mr. Frieda mentioned. You do need continual access and ability for people to get to the jobs, enjoy the jobs, have fun outside of the jobs. Because if somebody works in a manufacturing building and they're doing, a 16-hour shift or 8-hour shift, depending on the job, you have to factor in what are they going to do afterwards? What are they going to love in town that makes them stay in town and want to work for the company? Because obviously companies move town to town and transfer people, but I think you have to remain competitive in North Haven by bringing in people that love the job outside of the job as well. And I think that's the main way of attracting it, because you can give people all the money in the world to do the job. If they don't love the job or love the town, they're not going to stay. Thank you.
You have 30 seconds, Mike Frieda, for a follow-up if you wish.
So from a competitive standpoint, one of the most important things we can do to be competitive is maintain a favorable mill rate. And that businesses look at as being a core of competitiveness. They don't want a wide range of tax increases every year. And we look at North Haven from a competitive standpoint, our mill rate is 20 mills less than some surrounding municipalities, and that's a significant amount of dollars that they save in taxes. And lastly, we take Amazon, in front of Amazon, on the side of Amazon, and on Washington Avenue. We're in the process of building apartments with mixed use that'll help retain people. Thank you.
Thank you. 30 seconds, Karl Kordeck, if you choose to use your time.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, this is our final question this morning before we have our closing statements. And this is not just about the past, the present, but the future of North Haven in a meaningful way, and that is attracting young people to the community. According to numbers that were reviewed related to the year 2019, I'm sure they didn't change much in 2020. North Haven's median age was quite higher than some of the area towns in some respects, so an older demographic within the community. So attracting young people to North Haven may be a vital way to maintain an economic balance and balance the demographic age of the town to attract new families, singles as well into the community. And this question goes to Karl Kordeck first. What would you do if elected for selectman to ensure that more young people come to North Haven and stay in the community? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first off, there's many things to do. Obviously, you need representation in local government, either on the Board of Selectmen or any other department that, board or commission that can benefit from having that youthful experience and know what people really want in town. I think from my own experience living in North Haven at an early age was seeing that there was not much to do in town. There wasn't any nighttime entertainment. There wasn't any outdoor activity really besides parks and recreation. And obviously the only game in town is still one of the best places to go for go-karting. But obviously you need something to draw people in, hold on to them, and show them that this is a good town to grow into. A lot of people want to move here, and I think we have to make it more affordable in some aspects with the housing of apartments and the housing prices themselves. Obviously, we want the housing prices high, but we have to be able to show people that it's attainable to move here. And I think lately, over the past couple of years, we've had more seniors than younger people staying in town. And to retain that, you need to make North Haven a destination, both, for entertainment, for shopping, for dining, but you have to be able to target them specifically to show them that they can grow here and thrive here beyond what we currently have. Thank you.
Mr. Frieda, you have 2 minutes.
I think it's a multifaceted approach. We are now getting new families moving in, and I know that because new families are calling me, telling me that they moved into certain areas of North Haven. And they're moving in because of our investment in education. We're spending more per student now than we have in many, many years. We built a new middle school, and what we find is education, by supporting education, brings in new families. And having a mill rate that's 20 mills less than a surrounding municipality also helps with that. That's one facet. Facet number two involves trying to bring in businesses that attract younger people. I'm hoping that this new business will be opening up next month at the Golf Cove. It's a virtual golf facility. I hope that's a good example of trying to bring more people in. I mentioned we're building apartments with mixed use on Washington Avenue. I see that as a vehicle to attract new people, younger people here in North Haven who may not want to buy a home, who may want to live in an apartment, may not want the maintenance of a home, who may like the concept that we've brought forward with the Vigliotti family, who's the developer, and having retail on the first floor of an apartment building. We're trying to determine how we can connect more with Quinnipiac's law school and medical school and try to create some synergies with their students and local businesses through the Q card. So there's no doubt that it's a challenge. Our median age is about 46.9 years age, 47 years of age. So we will work hard to continue to try to bring new families here. And that's how I see the strategy, multifaceted. Thank you.
30 seconds to follow up if you choose. Karl, Kordeck.
All I can say is what we do today impacts tomorrow. I think we start from, attracting younger residents and holding on to them, because once they leave for college or once they leave for trade school, they never come back most instances. I think we're at like 52% right now where they either come back or they don't. So we definitely need to find methods to attract them and hold on to them because they are the future. Thank you.
Mike Frieda, you have 30 seconds if you wish to use the time.
Well, I'm very close with Southern Connecticut State University. Having graduated from there, I speak there. I'm a featured speaker there. I have been, along with the other colleges I speak at. And one of the things that school is that they retain 75 to 85% of their students that remain in the area, whether it's North Haven or surrounding areas. So I think that college can be a good vehicle for us to try to continue to perpetuate younger people moving into North Haven and our region. Thank you.
So this concludes our question and answer session for our candidates forum here today. What we'd like to do now is, based on the order that we began our program earlier, have our 2-minute closing statements from both of the candidates. And we start with First Selectman Michael Frieda. We'll have 2 minutes. Mr. Frieda.
Well, thank you, Ray. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I thank Mr. Kordeck for joining us during this discussion and this candidates forum. Over the past 12 years, ladies and gentlemen, it's been my great pleasure to serve the great community of North Haven. I can tell you that coming from a corporate business career and being CEO of what was at one time $1 billion company, and at that time I also had another job as regional president of a national agency. I was in the consumer products industry. I can share with you that no matter what I did in the past, mergers, acquisitions, featured speaker, corporate boards, this job is more complicated than that was. So the job of a first selectman requires tremendous financial knowledge, operational experience, strategic management, economic development, and operational experience in dealing with unions and union contracts. I think we've done a great job with that, but I'm the type of individual that's never satisfied. We're going to be continuing to move forward here in North Haven. New businesses will continue to come in. I have about 20 major projects I'm working on right now. I anticipate in the next 18 months, 16 of them will be delivered here. We will continue to grow the grant list. We will continue to reinvest in services. I'm proud to announce, and you're hearing it for the first time, that we've been AAA rated financially, the gold star of municipalities. I went through a very arduous ratings call with the rating agencies last week. This is where you really have to be on your game and know what you're doing. And I'm happy to report that we've been re-rated AAA. In the next 2 years, I'll be focusing in on increasing resources in our parks, improving our ball fields, improving our sports facilities, continuing to support education, increasing public safety, adding police officers, fire department, increasing the fire department resources, and we will continue to be a leader in this region. And I'm very grateful for being North Haven's first selectman, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Frieda. Mr. Kordeck, your 2-minute closing statement.
Over the past year, we have truly been through a dark night of the soul. The COVID-19 pandemic brought the world to its knees, and we mourn the normalcy of a pre-pandemic life. We carry the scars of a virus unlike anything we've seen in this generation. Psychologically, we are battered and bruised, but we're not defeated. It's time to rise from that dust. Here in North Haven, we have an opportunity, not just to start anew, but to rebuild. We have a chance to build back better. Never before have we had such a blank slate to forge a new future. I'm excited. And as your next first selectman, I'm determined to help guide our wonderful town to new heights, taking the lessons we've learned with us along the way. As a leader, I'm prepared for the challenges ahead, the relationships being built, and the town being financially prepared for the next decade. We're all in this together, one united team sharing our successes with the generation before us and after us. We have the capability to transform into something new and inspirational as a town. Our drive will continue to push us farther than we have ever gone before, and I embrace the demands that come with it. What we do this November 2nd is the most important task before us. North Haven is at a big moment in our town's history. This local election will decide which direction our town goes into the future. Post-pandemic, North Haven can rise to new heights as we have never seen before and become the sort of place that uplifts everyone to their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'd like to thank our 2 candidates for participating in the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce election forum this morning. To Democratic First Selectman challenger Karl Kordeck, thank you for being with us here for this forum. And to incumbent Republican First Selectman Michael Frieda, thank you again for participating. And again, our wish for you to cast your vote. November 2nd is election day here in 2021. We'd like to also thank Katie Ambrosio, who is our public policy and strategic communications specialist. She's been sharing the screen with us and doing a beautiful and diligent job with our Government Affairs Committee, but also today holding up those time cards, keeping us on track. So Katie, thank you so much for a professional job as usual. And again, this will be broadcast on North Haven Television, NHTV. On behalf of all of our partners and everyone affiliated with our affiliate chamber, the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, and right here at the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce, I'm Executive Director Ray Andrewson. Thank you very much for watching.
Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.